To calculate your budgeted total contribution margin on a pro forma income statement, you're going to get your sales, subtract your variable costs, and then that equals your contribution margin. The sales is your price times your quantity. Your total variable cost is your VC, or variable cost per unit, times your quantity. And then your contribution margin is equal to your price minus your variable cost times the quantity. These are the totals. The contribution margin is an important subtotal. It tells you how much each additional unit or hour adds to covering your fixed costs. And once you've covered your fixed cost, that adds to your operating income. So in this case, the per unit and the unit here are hours. The sales price is the $18, which you can see up here. The variable costs we have to look at. And variable costs are any costs that go up with each additional unit. In other words, it changes in total as volume changes. So the advertising, because it's $60 a month, it's a fixed cost. Whether you work one more hour or not, it's $60. Gas is a variable cost because if you work one more hour, you've got an increase in that cost. Depreciation is fixed, just like the advertising. The wages is a variable cost because with an additional hour, you're going to have to pay $9. And the miscellaneous is a fixed. Whether you work 1 hour or 300 hours, it's $610. All right. Now, I'm going to figure out my variable costs by adding those, and I'm going to make them a negative. In other words, these get subtracted from your sales. So I've got $1.60, and I have the 9. So $10.60 is going to be subtracted. The difference is my contribution margin. So in this example, it's $7.40 per unit. The total, though, is going to be equal to the 740 times the quantity, and the quantity is the 290 hours, which you can see up here. So my total contribution margin is $2,146. As far as other questions you can get asked about is what's your break even? If you were asked what your break even is, you'd have to subtract from your contribution margin your fixed costs, which are $60, 60 for the advertising, 25 for the depreciation, and $610 for the miscellaneous. So in this case, if you were to determine break even, what you're going to do is basically figure out what your quantity is such that your operating income equals 0. So basically you solve your break even by solving this equation, which is your CM times Q. Oops, sorry. So if you look at this, you're taking your CM times Q minus the 695. That difference you set to equal 0, and then solve for Q. So when I do that, my Q, it's equal to 695 divided by my contribution margin per unit. 94 hours is what I would have to work. And you can prove it out by taking 94 hours, or let's say it this way, your contribution margin per hour times 94 hours, and that should equal 695. And then you subtract your 695 and you get the 0.